Hello and welcome to South Central Kansas Living. I'm Rick Laurino for KGPT 49. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And we're going to be spending our time today looking at the child abuse issues here in South Central Kansas and possible solutions. Ways we can strengthen our families and our community here. With me today are County Commissioner Tim Norton, Cornelia Stevens from the Kansas Children's Service League, Diane Shunn from the Child Advocacy Center of Sedgwick County, and Corey Long, CEO of Carpenter Place here in Wichita. After this break, we'll be back with County Commissioner Tim Norton.
Presenting from the Great Plains Television Studios in Wichita, Kansas, Kansas Living with Rick Laurino. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to South Central Kansas Living. With me right now is County Commissioner Tim Norton. And Tim, welcome.
Well, thank you, Rick. It's good to be here today.
You know, I've known you for a long time, and I've been getting every week from you something that you've been writing, I think, for a long time, and it's called A Word in Edgewise. Can you tell me a little bit about A Word in Edgewise?
Well, it's my communication tool to the public. I started writing it probably 15 years ago when I was mayor of Hayesville in an effort to kind of tell the townsfolk and my constituency what I was working on, what the issues of the day were. I don't make it too political. I don't make it too skewed one way or another. I try to talk about the subject matter, what the talking points are, where the decision points are, and how important I think it is to the community. And
you want people to engage with you, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. I'll usually get, depending on the article, 20 or 30 replies that says, hey, way to go, or I didn't know about this, or have you thought about this, or where can I get more information and volunteer? So it is a good way to get the information out.
It's a good two-way street. I know not long ago you wrote about April being Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Well, children's issues are a big issue for me. I've often said your civilization is designed by how you treat your children and your seniors and other vulnerable populations, and children are very important.
And you've been interested in this topic of child abuse for a long time?
Well, when I was with Target Stores as the manager, I was on the original Child Abuse Prevention Council with Judge Burgess and several other people. And that eventually morphed into and went to the Kansas Children's Service League. So that was back in the mid-'80s. So I've worked,
long time.
Yeah, I've worked on this issue for a long time.
Well, that's great. Today you brought a couple of people with you, and I'm going to look forward to talking to Cornelia Stevens from the Kansas Children's Service League and Diana Shunn from the Child Advocacy Center of Sedgwick County, and I know you have an interest in that.
Well, I do. You know, there's well over 200 child advocacy centers around the United States. We've had one for about 4 years, but they've been around for 40 years.
Wow.
And I just believe that a multidisciplinary system that brings together police and sheriff and missing children's bureau and social services and mental health and other wraparound services, the DA, is very important. And we need a standalone facility.
Okay, Tim, thank you for your time today. After this break, we'll come back and be with Cornelia Stevens from the Kansas Children's Service League. Welcome back, and with me right now is Cornelia Stevens from the Kansas Children's Service League. Cornelia, what's your title over there?
I am the South Central Region Program Director for the Kansas Children's Service League.
Man, that's a mouthful.
That it is.
Tell me a little bit about the history of the Kansas Children's Service League.
Well, the Kansas Children's Service League is the state chapter for Prevent Child Abuse America, and we actually started providing services to children and families 120 years ago.
Oh my goodness, 120 years ago. That's a long time this agency's been around.
Absolutely.
Is it public, private? Are you a state agency?
We are a private 501c3, so we're a nonprofit organization. And we got our start actually providing adoption services for children when families, for whatever reason, were not able to care for their children. Kansas Children's Service League would help find what we call forever homes for children to give them safe and stable places to live.
So that's where this all began. What's the mission today?
Today, our mission is to protect and promote the well-being of children. What we realized 120 years ago as we looked at the work that we were doing in adoption is that many of the children that were being placed in adoptive homes could have stayed with their family of origin if their families just had some education on parenting. If they just got the supportive services that they needed, they would have been able to keep their children. So at that point, KCSL started providing prevention services to really increase people's ability to be parents and to keep children in their homes.
And that's probably a huge undertaking. I mean, for a family to have the resources necessary to meet all of their needs with all of the many problems that can come into play, that's a big job.
It is a big job. We have a motto at KCSL that kids don't come with instructions. I always laugh, when I got my kids, they didn't, hand me my kids with an instruction manual that says, okay, this is how. I did not get an instruction manual. And, they gave me my kids and said, good luck. And, but what if I was raised in an environment where my parents didn't understand, good boundaries, or where my parents didn't have the supports that they needed. So I didn't have a model to look after, or even if
you modeled generally what you grew up in.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so what we do is we try to give the parents, for lack of a better word, that instruction manual. We try to give them the supports that they need.
What actually is child abuse? What can it be?
Child abuse can be physical abuse, it can be emotional abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect. There are a variety of types of child abuse. And
so it covers a lot.
It really does cover a lot. It really does. In Sedgwick County, we had over 11,000 cases of abuse and neglect in reports of abuse and neglect in 2001.
In Sedgwick County?
In Sedgwick County.
11,000
reports of abuse and neglect in Sedgwick County.
You're into the preventive issues, and let's talk a little bit about that. How do we prevent child abuse and neglect?
Prevention is about education. It's about teaching people the skills that they need and providing the resources and supports for families, for parents to learn what we need to be the best parents that we can be. Research has actually shown that every dollar that is invested in prevention services saves $7 in taxpayer dollars on the back end.
And how does that work? I mean, how can I put $1 in and get $7 back?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it costs a lot less to go in and provide services to someone before any negative behavior or bad things start happening than it does to go in years later and invest money in trying to repair the damage, trying to fix, things that have happened. No different than with your vehicle. You take care of your vehicle before things start going wrong.
What you're telling me is we're not putting the dollars in the right place today?
That is what I'm telling you. We have if we look at when the world was exposed to polio, the world didn't decide we're just going to provide a polio vaccine to 10% of the population.
No, they vaccinated everybody.
They vaccinated
They lined
everyone.
us up at school and
that's correct.
gave us the shot.
That's correct. Yet prevention efforts are really only funded at about 10% of the need.
How can we change the resource allocation?
Advocacy is part of the key.
Okay.
Helping to educate, trying to raise awareness to the fact that, the abuse and neglect that happens to our children in Sedgwick County, in Kansas, across the nation can be prevented. And as people understand that if we, it doesn't cost as much, to really direct those resources there. The more we can do to educate and help people understand that, we're hoping that we can then shift, this investment and really do what we can to change.
Can our viewers help in any way? Can they volunteer? Can they be involved with your agency?
Absolutely. We use volunteers, and really, as a nonprofit organization, if it wasn't for the support of our community, we wouldn't be around for 120 years, in all honesty. Through our private investors, people who have given donations to our agency, or to people who just want to come and help.
If I was aware of a child abuse issue, how would I contact your agency, or how would I send somebody to you folks to get help?
If we're talking about people that maybe just need help, We have a parent helpline 24 hours a day. It's 1-800-CHILDREN, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in Sedgwick County and across the state of Kansas. People can call, and there's a live person that will answer the phone that will just help answer questions.
And if I just wanted to talk to somebody and get some help, I can call 1-800-CHILDREN?
1-800-CHILDREN, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's available in English and Spanish.
What are some of your success stories?
Success stories. What keeps us going are our successes, are the families that come in that, there's parents who nobody ever told them perhaps that they could do more than they're doing. Maybe they are the 5th generation, in their family that hasn't gotten a high school diploma. They maybe don't have a college degree, and they get involved in Healthy Families, which is one of our home visitation programs that we have. And we start working with them prenatally, before their child is born, to help them identify, their course, their plan of action, making sure that they have the cribs and the, formula and the things that they need to take care of themselves, but also, asking them now as new parents, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? We all as adults have gone to a place where we ask ourselves that question again. And it's amazing when we have parents that are then thriving, that are managers in jobs, that are caring for their children, and that are being amazing parents, that then come to us and say, we would not be able to do that if someone hadn't given me the strength and the skills to believe in myself more than anything, that I can achieve, that I can be, I can aspire and go to my dreams. And
it's the reinforcement that all of us can be successful somehow if we have the right help.
People don't naturally want to be bad parents. I think that we all innately have the desire to be successful individuals, and it's creating the path and building the framework to help them get there, and that's the work that we do.
And Cornelia, it's been a pleasure visiting with you, hearing about the agency, hearing about the fact that it's been here for over 120 years. Let's take this break, and we'll be back with Diana Schrun in just a little bit. We're back now with Diane Shun. She's with the Child Advocacy Center of Sedgwick County, and that's a mouthful, Diana.
Yes, it is.
Tell me a little bit about what the Child Advocacy Center of Sedgwick County is.
Absolutely. The Child Advocacy Center was developed to be able to pull all the different respective agencies together when there's a child abuse investigation. And 5 years ago, the Child Advocacy Center was first birthed in this community.
Okay.
There's about 750 child advocacy centers across the nation.
So it's a nationwide concept, and we developed it about 6 years ago. Yeah. Can you tell me what some of the agency pieces are that play into this overarching group?
Sure. Our primary agencies that we work with on a daily basis include the Exploited and Missing Child Unit, and that's a unit that's made up of the Wichita Police Department, Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office, and the Department for Children and Families. And so they do joint investigations between law enforcement and social services in the child abuse investigation process. And so other partner agencies that we work with on a regular basis would be the District Attorney's Office, also with our medical components. So that includes both Wesley Medical Center and Via Christi Regional Medical Center, or Via Christi Health, I should say.
It sounds to me like the agencies you work with are more on the, okay, it's already happened, now we've got to deal with the remains. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's certainly true. We do spend time in prevention as well, because if we're not attempting to prevent some of these situations, then we wouldn't be doing our part as well. So prevention and identification are really what we focus on, as well as then once that abuse scenario is identified, taking care and coordinating what those services might need to be through the investigation process.
Do we have a real problem with child abuse in Sedgwick County?
We do. We have a real problem, and I think that it's an uncomfortable topic for many people to talk about, so it's easy to not necessarily believe that there are quite the numbers that there are.
It's kind of a dirty little hidden secret, isn't it?
It is. You know, it makes it much more comfortable for us if we believe that it happens in another community or to someone else's family or to someone we don't know, or, you know, that person, whatever that person might be to someone's perception. So it becomes much more uncomfortable when we realize that it happens to people that we do know and people that we like and people that we're familiar with.
How can people familiarize themselves with the child abuse issue?
Goodness, there's a lot. You know, first of all, from a being aware standpoint, I think that there's a lot of things that we can look at. One of those would be simply recognizing that we need to know what the signs and symptoms of child abuse include, and there's a host of those. But the second thing we would need to really focus on is the fact that abusers are tricky and they will find access, and we need to be aware of that. The third thing I would say is that children are never responsible for their own safety. That's an adult responsibility. So ultimately, the fourth thing that we have to focus on is the fact that we as the adults need to recognize and identify dangerous situations, and we need to be able to act upon those.
Last year, how many cases did your agency refer?
We were involved in 1,690 cases.
That's a lot of cases.
Children that are under the age of 18.
Wow.
Yes.
Primarily, you're dealing with children under 18, dependent.
Correct. Okay. Yes. 69% of all of those cases were under the age of 12, so a significant number underneath the age of 12. So 604, to be exact, were under the age of 6.
604 under the age of 6.
Correct. 36% of our total cases were under the age of 6.
That's very young. I didn't realize that it started that young.
Oh, unfortunately, we can have children that are days old, and we have children all the way through, obviously, till they're 18 and older.
Well, I appreciate you sharing some of these things. Is there anything that I'm leaving out at this point, Diana? I mean, anything you want to add?
Cornelia probably talked about some of the statistics. 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys before the age of 18 being a victim of sexual abuse. And I think that part of that then just becomes our responsibility to recognize that denial is not okay, that we have a responsibility to learn more. Whether you go to a website to be able to learn more, onewithcourage.org is a great website. There's a host of different websites that are available out there that talk about child abuse and focus on what is my responsibility as an adult, how do I recognize when there is a dangerous situation, and what can I do about that?
Yes, and the internet is a marvelous tool to learn, to use for learning processes, and we would encourage everybody with shows like this to go to the internet, find out more about the topic if it's something that interests you. And I want to thank you for your time today with us, and we'll be right back after this break. With me now is Corey Long of Carpenter Place, and he's the CEO. Corey, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell me a little bit about Carpenter Place?
Carpenter Place is an all-girls children's home. We actually serve girls that are 6 to 24 years old. We've been around since the 40s. Been around a long time. So we take girls, we have residential care, so we have homes on our campus. We bring them in. They live on campus with staff.
Everybody that you service and lives on your campus.
Now we do some aftercare with girls once they go home, but all of the younger girls, our goal is to bring them onto campus. They usually stay about 8, 10, 12 months, just depending on the issue or the background story. And then we try to get them back home. We try to reintegrate them back with their families.
How does somebody come to Carpenter Place?
Well, we get referrals from all sorts of places. A lot of times it's a family member that's setting up late at night because mom and dad's grandparent, whoever it is stressed out. They're trying to figure out what to do with their teenage daughter or whatever.
You deal with young girls and older, young
adults.
Young and old.
Yeah.
And those are two separate groups.
Really separated out on our campus. We have 3 cottages that are designed for the younger girls up to 18 years old. And then we have apartments that are single-bedroom apartments designed for girls that are 18 to 24.
What, in your estimation, is this whole subject of child abuse? What is that?
It encompasses a lot. You know, we see a lot of girls that come in that have been physically abused, girls that have been actually physically abused in their home. But most of the time for us, it's more emotional damage. We do have some girls that come into the campus that have been sexually abused. That have been exploited either by date rape or some other thing. But
is it socioeconomic or is it
Doesn't matter.
Broad stroke.
Broad stroke.
Okay.
We have served girls that come to us out of the deepest poverty, and then we've served girls that come to us out of wealth.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to, and sometimes it's a single parent, sometimes it's a grandparent, sometimes it's a two-parent home that is great.
What's a success story?
One girl came to us last year. She'd been on her own since she was about 14. She had lived in her dad's house, but she was pretty much taking care of herself. She worked, bought her own clothes, bought her own food, got herself back and forth to school.
At 14?
At 14. Was literally going and taking part in sports and other activities at school by herself. Rode a city bus back and forth. Yeah, pretty amazing. Worked in the evenings. Literally took care of herself.
This young lady is pretty dedicated to surviving.
At 17, she decided that she needed some help. She searched us out, not her parents. All of the girls that are younger that are placed with us has to have a guardian sign over some kind of a rights. We basically have temporary guardianship of the child.
Okay.
So we can take care of medical and education needs. She came to us. She was in her senior year. Didn't think she would graduate high school. And so we have an on-campus school. And so she came, went through our on-campus school, which is all self-paced, online. And so she came in August. In 2 months, she had completed her whole senior year.
Wow.
She was a very motivated young lady and extremely smart. First girl or first kid in their whole family that had graduated high school.
Well, she had to be pretty intelligent to have survived to that point.
Yeah, so you've got a 17-year-old, been taking care of herself for 3 years, completes high school. She walks in my office and says, I'd really like to go to college, but there's no way. I don't see, financially any way to do that. So we worked through that and figured out a way to get her up to Washburn, and she's been at Washburn since January.
And when she reached high school graduation, that wasn't the end for you folks.
I mean, this is something that a lot of times a girl will go on, whether it's with a family or just if it's just her, because she's pretty much alone. She has nobody else really to call. So we become that family for them.
I know that you're a private, not-for-profit organization. Funding, I'm sure, is part of your constraints. But what are some of the other constraints you folks have?
So right now we have 22 beds. In fact, we're about to open another apartment up coming up next month. So we have we'll have a total of 23, 9 that's apartments, and then we have 14 that are in the cottages. So right now we can only hold as many as we have beds.
22.
We have a waiting list usually for both sides of campus. It just kind of depends on the time of the year. We have a lot of calls at different times of the year.
How about financial constraints?
We have probably about 20% of our budget right now made up by churches. We're a Christian organization, so out of the other 80%, a few of those percentage points are made up by events and other activities that we do. We have a golf tournament and those kinds of things.
Okay.
But the rest of it's all just individuals in the community. They find out who we are, what we do, how we're helping kids, and they want to get involved. How can people get involved with Carpenter Place? Because we're private, it really puts us in a different position. If you came in to volunteer at our campus, you can share your faith with the kids. It's a different setting because we are private. We have volunteer opportunities from anything from landscaping to whatever, because we're a very, very small staff. So we have people that come in and help us with office work. We have people that come in and mentor girls. We had a group of ladies on campus last night doing crafts with the kids. We have a group of ladies that does sewing with the kids.
Wow.
Art, music. We have all kinds of different opportunities volunteer-wise. And then, of course, donation-wise, we take, I didn't even mention this earlier, but in the apartments, when a girl completes her stay with us, which means that she can take care of herself, and she's able to do that.
Able to go back out on her own.
She takes everything out of the apartment with her.
You help her get set up.
Everything goes with her. We want her to leave like my daughter leave my house. We don't want her to have to stress about those things.
Get the bed, get the dresser,
all
get
of
the
the
desk,
stuff has to go back in there.
And
so we take donations.
Okay.
For all kinds of household goods, furniture, that sort of thing. We also take clothing donations. Probably 80% of all the food that we eat on campus is donated food. So we take food donations. And then, of course, monetarily, we have a very small staff, and we really are tight on our budget so that people know that when they come to the home and they give, it goes to the kids.
Is there anything in closing that you'd like the community to know about Carpenter Place?
anyone can refer a child to us. And I think that's something that we forget. Could be a kid that sits next to you on a church pew on Sunday morning. It could be a family that's a neighbor down the street that needs help. Anyone can refer a child to us. So pick up the phone, get online, call us at Carpenter Place, and let us know what's going on. We can help.
Corey, thank you very much. Thank you for running Carpenter Place in our community. I think it's a great asset.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and the emphasis this year is on strengthening families and communities. The premise is simple. All children should be raised in healthy and nurturing homes, free from neglect and abuse. You know, there's a lot of information out there that talks about what child abuse is or isn't and how it can be recognized. There are 10 top indicators of a child that might be experiencing violence or abuse. There are unexplained injuries, changes in behavior, returning to earlier behaviors, fear of going home, changes in eating or sleeping habits, changes in school performance and attendance, a lack of personal care or hygiene, risk-taking behaviors, inappropriate sexual behaviors. Those are all indicators many times of when a child is experiencing some form of abuse or neglect. We want you to be able to educate yourself, look at those things, and if you feel that there's a child that needs help, contact the 1-800 number. We want to thank you for watching the program this week. We hope you've enjoyed it. And until next week, this is Rick Laurino for KGPT, Channel 49.